So we're going to continue here looking at the responsibilities or the instructions concerning women, wives, and mothers in the family unit here. And so just a quick review. We mentioned last week again, men and women as image bearers, equal in value. And I hope, Dave pointed this out, that we ended last week talking about the crown. An excellent wife is a crown. And so I hope that we all see that is, if I've demeaned women in any way, of course that's not my intent, but I hope that we see the crown is the exaltation of the role of the wife and in the relationship. She is that crown. She is beautiful. She is helpful. She is necessary. She is what brings so much to the husband. I mean, could we say she makes him what he is, so to speak? I mean, obviously, God in his life and all of those things, but the wife is essential to the husband. She completes him. And so I hope we understand that. We are not saying that this place of submission, this idea of helper, is any lower or less value in the home and in this relationship. So we read a few verses of a godly and exemplary wives, of what their lives should look like. We looked at 1 Timothy 5:9, and where Paul there describes the widows and all these things that they should be doing if they're going to be widows indeed and going to be cared for then by the church. And so, again, this is not a list of just a select few women. This is what all women in the church should be doing. Again, maybe we should just read that real quick here. In 1 Timothy 5. 9. 1 Timothy 5:9. A widow is to be put on the list only if she is not less than 60 years old, having been the wife of one man, having a reputation for good works, and if she has brought up children, if she has shown hospitality to strangers, if she has washed the saints' feet, assisted those in distress, and if she has devoted herself to every good work. Okay, so that's what Paul says. This is an exemplary life. This is the life of a woman who is a godly woman, who has served the church, has raised children, has done all of these things. That's how every woman should be. And then he goes on there and he says, speaking of the younger widows, in verse 14, therefore I want younger widows to get married, bear children, keep house, and give the enemy no occasion for reproach. So again, we see there what he expects of these young women who are either married or will be married. Bear children, keep house, and so on. As well as all these other things that he mentions. Serving the church, serving those in distress, and so on. Another passage we looked at was 1 Timothy 2. Some specific instruction here. 1 Timothy 2, verse 9. Likewise, I want women to adorn themselves with proper clothing, modestly and discreetly, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly garments, but rather by means of good works, as is proper for women making a claim to godliness. Along those same lines, 1 Peter 3. 1 Peter 3, 3 and 4. Peter's instructions for women. Your adornment must not be merely external, braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry, or putting on dresses, but let it be the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. For in this way, in former times, the holy women also who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, being submissive to their own husbands, just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord. And so, what is the emphasis there? It's this inner man. Okay, that's what makes a godly woman. That's what makes this beautiful woman. What does the Proverbs say? Beauty is vain and deceitful, right? But the inward woman, the inner man here is what the apostles are saying we should strive to beautify through these good works, through these good attitudes, and so on. So the inner beauty, the hidden person, submissive, gentle, quiet spirit. Ephesians 5 talks about submission there with wives, being able to be instructed and so on. And so, not this outward. We're not looking for an outward show, whether it's, an outward look or just an outward actions that look good, but an inner beauty, an inner reality is what a godly woman should have. I didn't really mention modesty last week much, so I'll just mention it now. That there's some clear instruction there to be modest. So what is modesty? Hopefully we all understand what modesty is. It's not just covering up, all right? So obviously we could look at a woman who's scantily clad and we could say she's immodest. That would be true. But we can also be fully covered and still be immodest, all right? The King James uses shamefacedness, right, in one of the descriptions for modesty. There's a shame. There's an idea there of not wanting to be seen, like you want to be tucked in the corner so that nobody even knows you're there. That's the idea with this. That's part of what modesty is. And so I remember years ago, Dad said you could come in to the meeting dressed in bright yellow with a big bright yellow hat and fully clothed and loose-fitting clothes, and it's totally immodest because everybody's looking at you. You're drawing all the attention to yourself. That's being immodest. Just as somebody who comes in with a little bitty tight mini skirt and a revealing top and everything else. It's the same thing. Drawing attention to oneself. So that's what the apostles are saying here. That's modesty, and that's what women should seek to be, modest in all those ways. We talked about the roles of women, and so I want to point out here in 1 Timothy 2:3, because I didn't mention this here, but in 1 Timothy 2:3, Paul says, This is good and acceptable in the sight of God our Savior, who desires all men to be saved. That is not the passage. Oh, I think it's Titus. I'm sorry. Titus 2:3. Yes. Titus 2:3. Older women likewise are to be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips, nor enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, so that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands, to love their children, to be sensible, pure, workers at home, kind, being subject to their own husbands, so that the word of God will not be dishonored. So we have there again a description of what women should be doing, their role in the home. But I want to emphasize here this very first part where he says the older women. What does he say that the older women should be doing there? Teaching the younger and encouraging them in these godly behaviors. All right? And so that's a responsibility for older women. We have plenty of older women here in the church who have raised children, who have grown up, and so on. And so you have a responsibility to be a help and an encouragement to the young women, to the new mothers, to the newly married, to the unmarried, to be an example to them and to give them good counsel, instruction in doing these things that they're called to do. And so I want to encourage the older women in that. I want to encourage the younger women, right? So if you've got the older women supposed to teach and encourage you in these things, what does that mean for you younger women? What should you be doing? Receiving instruction, right? Listening. Not just hearing it, but making it a part of your life and living it out in these ways. And so there's two responsibilities there for the older and for the younger, to teach and to admonish, to encourage, the younger to hear and to put these things into practice. So, again, what does he say to do there in Titus? To love their husbands, love their children, to be sensible, pure. That word pure could be translated modest. The word sensible, curbing one's desires and impulses, self-control, exercising self-control. And then workers at home, keeping the home, taking care of household affairs. We then mentioned also just being helpers. And so again, that is a critical and important role in the home. That wives are a help to their husbands. I mean, that's why Eve was created. We said that. There was a question last week just regarding, I said that wives should be a good counselor to their husbands. And I might have said something along the lines of helping to change their minds or something like that. But and that's good and right, I'm sticking to that. But if you remember what I said in weeks before, just as husbands lead in communication. Leading in communication is saying, hey, here's what I think. This is what I'm thinking we should do. And talking to your wife, what do you think? What have you got to say? What's your input on this matter? And having a conversation. Again, husband's leading in that. And then your wife says, yeah, you're way off base here, babe. Here's what I think. And you're like, yeah, I didn't even think of that. So yeah, you're right. That's some good counsel. Yep, we need to change what I'm thinking here. Changing your mind in that way is good. That's a helpful thing. Right? And that's what a wife should do. And that's what a husband should do. Give me some good advice. What do you think? Here's what I think. And so that is a wonderful help in the marriage relationship. Men and women are different. I don't know if anybody else knows that, but we think differently, right? We observe things differently. We observe different behaviors differently. And so when my wife tells me, didn't you see what was going on there? And I say, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she can say, here's what was going on. Here's what I think should happen. And I can say, yeah, well, if that was what was going on, you're right. So, being a help in that way. A wife is a great help. All right. There's one passage that we didn't look at that I've really hesitated to look at because there's a lot that could be said here, and I don't necessarily want to spend a great deal of time. But regarding the excellent wife that we mentioned last week, the crown, talked about Ruth there as an example of an excellent wife. We have this passage in Proverbs that is a wonderful description here of a woman. And let's go ahead and read it. And the reason I hesitate is, and I don't want to spend a great deal of time, because so often this passage is given as an example of a woman who's working outside the home. Here she is working outside the home and doing all these things. That's not what this is. Okay? And so if that's your view of Proverbs 31, this woman working outside the home, then you've missed it. But let's read it here. It says, an excellent wife, who can find? For her worth is far above jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not evil all the days of her life. She looks for wool and flax and works with her hands in delight. She is like merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She rises also while it is still night and gives food to her household and portions to her maidens. What is she doing there? She's caring for the home. She's helping her husband. He trusts her. She's reliable. He doesn't need to worry about all these things that are in her hands because she's doing it. She rises early before everybody else and cares for her home, makes sure everybody's fed. All right. She considers a field and buys it. From her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She girds herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She senses that her gain is good. Her lamp does not go out at night. She stretches out her hand to the distaff and her hand grasps the spindle. Again, she's working. She's providing. What is she providing for? She's providing for the poor and her home. She extends her hand to the poor, and she stretches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed with scarlet. She makes coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Again, we could say all sorts of things about that. Her husband is known in the gates. When he sits among the elders of the land, she makes linen garments and sells them and supplies belts to the tradesmen. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she smiles at the future. She opens her mouth in wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household, and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up and bless her, her husband also. And he praises her, saying, Many daughters have done nobly, but you excel them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. Give her the product of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. If we could all be like that, it would be such a blessing, right? I mean, caring for, providing for, working hard, helping her husband. All of these things are going on. She is that example that we have in Titus and Timothy, Peter. She is that woman. A few things that I wrote down here. She's trustworthy. She's diligent, hardworking, never idle, generous, skillful, wise, capable, and kind. That's the description of the woman there in Proverbs 31. So, it's a good description. And so that's why I wanted to mention it and mention those couple things. So, we talked also just about how counterculture all of this is and the lies that the world seeks to have us believe. The idea of an independent woman, fulfilling your career, fulfilling your desires, and all of these other things at the expense of your home, at the expense of your children, at the expense of your husband. Those are all lies of Satan. We said, if you want to be fulfilled, if you want to be in a place of blessing, where should you be? Doing what God has called you to do, where He's called you to do it. That is the place of joy and of happiness. That is the place of blessing. Another thing that we did not mention last week that I thought I would touch on this morning, just briefly, in a way that a wife is a help to her husband. So, again, the more I think about everything that I've said and everything that could be said, there's just so much. There's so much that could be said regarding the home, the family, the husband-wife relationship. And so one thing that I haven't mentioned here is sex. And I was thinking about that this week, that I hadn't said anything about that. And so let me read this passage. And again, this is a way that the husband and wife are a help. And generally speaking, the wife specifically to the husband. But in 1 Corinthians 7, we'll start in verse 1. Now concerning the things about which he wrote, it is good for a man not to touch a woman. But because of immoralities, each man is to have his own wife, and each woman is to have her own husband. The husband must fulfill his duty to his wife, and likewise also the wife to her husband. The wife does not have authority over her body, but the husband does. And likewise also the husband does not have authority over his body, but the wife does. Stop depriving one another, except by agreement for a time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer and come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. But this I say by way of concession, not of command. And he goes on there. So what's Paul saying there? That it is good that you have a husband and a wife, that you are married, and that you fulfill these sexual desires with one another, that you're not tempted outside to sin. And so in the marriage relationship, sex is a good and a wonderful thing. It's an enjoyable thing. It's pleasurable, and it's also obviously where children come from. And so I just wanted to mention real quick that this is an important part of the marriage relationship. This is not just a little side note that's something that, yeah, we have sex because we're married, but this is a huge part of your relationship. And it is often a part of frustration at times and difficulty, okay? Because, again, men and women are different, and men may desire it more than women, and women may not be in the mood, and so on and so forth, and all of those things. And so you have to work those things out in your marriage and in your relationship. You have to consider one another, the other person, more than yourself. What does Paul say there? It's not your body. It's your husband's body. It's your wife's body. And so you have to fulfill those desires for them, obviously, as long as they are good and biblical desires. So, in that way, a wife is a wonderful help to her husband in satisfying those desires that he has. All right. So, this morning then, I want to spend some time speaking directly to mothers. And I want to start by saying that the role of mothers, the role of motherhood, I don't know, there's no greater calling for a woman than to be a mother. This is, you cannot say too much, and you cannot elevate it too much, the role of being a mother to your children. This is not a small matter. It is not insignificant. It is so superior to what the world thinks. The world says what? Have your children and send them to daycare. Send them to school. Do, whatever. Get them out and live your life. Right? A totally warped and wrong view of children. You have the opportunity as a mother to influence and impact your child more than anyone else. More than the husband and the father. Why? Because they should be with you all day long. They're with you. You're caring for them. He's off at work, right? He's providing for the home. What's the wife doing? What's the mother doing? She's caring for these all day long. When we work in our society now, we only work, we're going 10 hours. We got an hour drive home. We're working 8 hours, whatever, roughly. Again, it's all different. That's 10 hours extra that the mothers have with these children to influence and to impact, to train, to teach, all of these things. You wives, you mothers play a vital role in the raising of children. And God has put this upon you. No one else. Obviously, as we've already said, husbands and fathers, they're responsible for all of these things. But you mothers, this is a huge responsibility that the Lord has placed upon you. He's not given this responsibility to anyone else. If you neglect this responsibility, you neglect your children. You neglect their good. You neglect their care. What does Paul say? What does he say to these women? Love your children. Older women, teach these younger women to love their children. How do we love our children? All of those things that we mentioned before, that fathers are responsible for. Mothers are also responsible. Again, under the leadership and guidance of the husband, of the father. But mothers are responsible for all of those same things. The Proverbs are full of instruction to mothers to teach and to train, to instruct your children. That is your responsibility. You can't do that when they're not with you. You can't do that when you're at work. It's impossible. You are responsible for discipline. You are the arm of your husband when he's gone. That is resting solely upon you. You have to do it. Again, it's what your husband should be saying. Honey, you have got to discipline. You've got to instruct. This must be done while I'm gone. I have to work. I have to provide. I'm relying upon you. There's no greater help to a husband than a wife and a mother who cares for her children and cares for her home while her husband is away. No greater help there. So, the discipline, the training, the instruction of our children, spiritual maturity, emotional, physical, social maturity, all of those things that we said fathers are responsible for. We as fathers place the responsibility on our wives. Again, not solely. We make sure these things are being done. We help, we encourage when we're home. We do all those things with her. But mothers are responsible for these things and have a great and enormous impact upon these children that the Lord has blessed us with. So, do not believe the lies of the world that say it's okay to turn the care of your children over to someone else. It's not. And it's not okay. The Lord has given them, committed them to you for this purpose, to train them up, to raise them, to teach them, to love them. This is how we love them. We provide for them. We care for them. We guard them. We protect them. I want to make sure that we don't, obviously, our children are not going to be with us 24/7. As they grow older, they're going to go. And I'm not saying, you can't have a babysitter and all of these other things. But we are responsible. You mothers, how are you able to control what your children see, what they hear, if you're not with them? If you turn them over to, the school system, what are they going to hear? What are they going to see? They're going to learn of evolution. They're going to learn all the depravity of sexual depravity out there. And hear all these things are okay, and they're good, and they're acceptable. How can you protect your children in those ways? You can't. And so it's important that as mothers and fathers, you consider all of these things as you raise your children. How are you able to fulfill what God has called you to do? You've got to consider all of that. So mothers, again, I want to emphasize, I think I've said it, but I'm just saying it again. You have a great and enormous responsibility and a huge impact upon your children, for good or for bad, depending upon how you use those responsibilities that God has given you. So, take it seriously. Consider it. Another thing here that I wanted to mention for mothers. You new mothers in particular. So I think I've already said this, but it's here you are, you've got this new baby, right? And you've got to have all of these, you've got to learn. There's so much to learn. You're trying to protect them, you're trying to keep them, you're trying to keep them healthy and all these other things. You also have to let them grow up. You have to let them mature. You have to let them take responsibilities. They have to do things. They have to fail at things. They've got to learn to use the stove. When are you going to let them do that? When they're 16 and you're really sure now that they can use the stove, they really understand. Long before then, hopefully. But those are all things you have to consider. You have to let them grow up. You have to let them do these things. And if they don't want to, you have to make them do these things. They've got to learn to dress themselves. They've got to learn to pick out their clothes. They've got to learn responsibility. So guard, protect, keep, all of those things. Don't baby them, though. Make them grow up. Again, there's a balance there. But just be mindful of that. It's good. It's good for them to be out and about. It's good for them to be doing different things. And I think I said this before, but it came to my mind again. Again, one way that we encourage our children in being social and learning and trusting other people is here at the church. Passing those babies around is a wonderful way that baby knows he can go to anybody and be just fine here. He can be cared for. He's going to be loved. Get used to these other people. It's a good place to teach your children. It's a safe place to teach your children all of these things. So, mothers, everyone's different, right? Each mother is different. And some of you, this is just a natural thing for you. It's what you've always wanted. You're wanting to stay home. You're wanting to do this. Others of you have other desires. Oh, I'd really like to do this. I'd like to do that. Everybody's different. And so you have got to put your desires, your wants in line with Scripture, no matter what. That's our goal, is to serve the Lord and to be submissive to what He's given us. There is, like I said, only blessing in following after the Lord. There is only blessing as we are obedient to the calling that He has given us as husbands, as wives, as mothers, as fathers. And so it's imperative that we all consider what are our responsibilities. And let me say this one more time. These are not just decisions for wives and for mothers, right? Who's ultimately responsible for what goes on in the home? The husband. You husbands have to lead. You have to say, here's what the Bible says. This is what we should be doing. This is what's expected of us. This is how I'm going to lead us. And so lead your wives, men. Lead them in the way that they should go. Lead your homes in a godly, biblical manner. I think we'll just end there for the day.